A big shakeup that the Rams should consider making on defense. We're throwing out grades, and which Rams should be in the Pro Bowl? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, trying to get to 11,000 subs, so join the party, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know, do you think the Rams should replace Derion Kendrick at starting cornerback? My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Dodgers Nation, SI, now the Rams 4 Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, should the Rams replace Derion Kendrick at starting cornerback? We're looking at the defense. Can they hold up and continue to overachieve for the rest of the season and hopefully into the playoffs? We're going to throw out some grades. We're also going to make some cases for some Rams Pro Bowlers. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, Travis, we're going to get into some of these Pro Bowl possibilities for the Rams. We're talking about the defense. But first, I don't know if you saw this. The Rams, they posted a clip of Matthew Stafford and his daughters before the game, and his daughter says, "Have a good game. Don't get tackled." Man, I thought that was really cool. Yeah, tons of Donald. He's going for Phillip Rivers' record there. 4 daughters, got that Kobe gene, that girl dad gene. But yeah, that was a cool moment.
Yeah, look, it's also really good advice. I don't know how much tape that the Stafford daughters are breaking down, but clearly some, because the don't get tackled advice would be the number one thing I would tell him as well, right? Don't get tackled, don't throw interceptions, and keep yourself in one piece, because without him, I don't know what this team would look like other than what we saw with Brett Rippon. Who knows what's waiting with Carson Wentz along the way, but don't get tackled is very good advice from his daughter.
Yeah, sometimes you got to keep it simple, right? And that's definitely some great advice. And yeah, lots of daughters. He's got no say in that household, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, that was really cool, man. Love seeing that moment. Great moment there by the Rams social media team. But first off, we're going to dive into, we're going to pick up a segment we were talking about a couple weeks ago about potential Pro Bowlers for the Rams. We talked about Matthew Stafford and how he definitely deserves some consideration. Well, if you look at this Rams team, some of the contributors, you could have as many as 5, 6, 7, 8 if they were a winning team, if they were a team that had 10, 11, 12 wins, something like that. But of course, with their win total, you're not going to see a ton. But I definitely want to start with the case for Kyren Williams. Now, if you look at Kyren Williams, he's averaging 95.3 yards per game, 953 yards on the ground for this season. That's only 15 fewer than James Cook, who's second in the NFL, and that's having spent some time on the IR. He's absolutely established himself as RB1. He started the year to backup of Cam Akers. Sean McVay stuck with him, and he's really taken advantage of it, and he's definitely the Rams' future at the position.
I think he's the future at that position for the Rams, and I think what you just said is something that everybody else is going to kind of come to over the course of the next few weeks if the Rams continue to win, and certainly once you come into next season. I'll jump a little bit ahead, and I'm not the world's biggest fantasy football guy, but tell me you wouldn't want him near the top of your picks, right? He's putting up a bunch of yards. He gets in the end zone. He catches the ball out of the backfield. That other than his inability to stay healthy so far, that's really the only knock on this guy. He missed most of last year. He missed a good significant part of this year. But when he plays, he's not good. He's great. This is one of the best guys at this position. I understand that the league has changed, that McCaffrey and Saquon and maybe Derrick Henry and maybe one or two other guys are kind of name brands at running back, and everybody else kind of cycles through, and they're good for a year or two, and they move to another team, and none of these guys really get paid the way that they would like to get paid. He may be the exception to the rule, right? He may be one of these guys that you really do need to hold on to. He is different than your average NFL running back. I think he's a great cause, or a great case, I should say, for a Pro Bowl. I think that he's the reason, other than Matthew Stafford, that the Rams are in the position that they're in. I can't say enough nice things about the guy. He's been absolutely terrific. Other than his ability to stay on the field for 17 games, I have no complaints at all.
Yeah, that's the big thing. But I mean, just look at it. Taking the top spot this week, 152 yards, 95.3 yards per game. I mean, who would have ever predicted that heading into this season? So give a lot of credit to this Rams scouting development department.
D-Mac, I'll tell you what. You know who was predicting? Maybe not predicting it, but if we listen, we should have known. Sean McVay. Yeah, again, Sean McVay doesn't throw around super high-level compliments unless that guy deserves super high-level compliments. He did it with Cooper Kupp early in camp when he first showed up a million years ago. He did it with Kyren Williams last year. He did it with Puka Nacua this year. There's not, you know who we never said anything about? Logan Bruss. You know who we never said anything about? Tutu Atwell. Like, they're fine, but when he goes on and on in camp about, hey, I'm telling you this guy's going to be an important part of what we do. I'm telling you this guy loves football. I'm telling you this guy has some special things about him. Listen to him, because he's calling his shot early in camps. He did it with those guys, and if he starts saying it about whoever it is the Rams draft next, listen, because he's spot on.
That's a great point. I can remember early in the season, because that was one of the narratives heading into this year because of what happened last year with Cam Akers. It was Cam Akers, this is the first time he's going to be the feature back, and there's no drama. And then usually Sean McVay would find some way to sneak in. Hey, don't forget about Kyren Williams and Kyren this. And, he definitely would find a way to always sneak him and mention him. So, yeah, absolutely. Right. That's a great point. Now, I definitely hope he makes the Pro Bowl, and I think he's going to finish this season strong. And just what a great pick up there in the 5th round out of Notre Dame. I really wish they could get his former Joe Alt from Notre Dame, the left tackle in the draft. I think they've fallen too far to be a consideration from that. But these Notre Dame players.
10 picks, D-Mac. Let's move up, right? I mean, we've seen him do it before. Maybe this is another one of these times. We saw him move from the middle of the pack up to number 1 to get Jared Goff a million years ago. Maybe this is going to be another middle to back half of the pack. Like, here come our next 3 or 4 first rounders, and go get whether it's Alt or somebody else that they really have identified. They've done it before. And again, everydayers will remember me saying this. When you're finding starters in the 5th round and the 3rd round over and over and over again, you can afford to send some of those first rounders out for a surefire guy. Maybe they do it again.
That's a great point for sure. And then, of course, next one, this one's going to be easy to make the case for, is Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, 1,163 yards. That's 6th in the NFL, 87 catches. That's 12, has 4 touchdowns. The question is, how much history is he going to make for the remainder of this season? I mean, 87 catches through 14 games. He's on pace for 105. The record is 104 for Jalen Waddle. So he's right around that pace if he continues that. If you look at the receiving yards, 1163 through 14, on pace for 1412. And the record is 1473 by Bill Groman. I don't think Bill Groman thought I was going to get a shout out on this show. Yeah, 1455 for Jamar Chase and 1400 for Justin Jefferson. So could that make some history there? I'll tell you, there's one record he's not going to make, and that's touchdowns as a rookie. Randy Moss, 17 his rookie season. He ain't going to touch that, but he absolutely deserves to be in the Pro Bowl. One of the absolute diamond in the rough finds in the 5th round this season. Puka Nacua has been a revelation for the Rams.
I just gave Sean McVay a lot of credit for putting, and saying, hey, listen, Kupp's the real deal. Hey, listen, Kyren Williams is the real deal. Little D-Mac love right here. You were on the Puka Nacua train very early in camp saying, I'm telling you, this is the guy. This guy's going to make a big impact. And you were spot on. You really were. You identified him very early. He's been great. All the numbers that you just read off, I think, make the case better than anything that I could say. But I'll throw one more thing in there. If you were just redrafting last year's wide receiver class, he's probably the first guy off the board, right? I mean, if you're doing it again, I know that there's Jordan Addison and some other guys that are nice players, but if you're just doing it again, He might not go first. He might, but he certainly isn't going super late the way that he ended up going. I think that speaks to the year that he's had. And I think this is important too. Cooper Kupp obviously draws a lot of attention. He did a great deal of his work with Kupp either not there or not playing well. He is not just eating because Cooper Kupp is taking all the attention, taking all the number one coverages. Nacua did it even with Kupp gone or underperforming.
For sure. And I appreciate you giving me credit for loving Puka before they all did. And hey, How about this? I got the proof because you know what? A lot of people picked up Puka Nacua on the waiver wire early on the season after his big game in Seattle. I picked him before the season started in my fantasy football. He was like a Mr. Irrelevant pick for me. So the proof is in the Puka in my fantasy draft, and he's going to help me win a championship this Sunday because you brought up fantasy football, so I don't want to throw that out there. But Travis, coming up in our next segment, the big question is the defense. Can this defense hold up? How are they performing of late? We're going to throw out some grades for their last game against the Commanders. And should they make a position change? Should they change and replace a starter? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
Look, I could tell you all about PrizePicks and the fact that it's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, that it's super easy to use, that it's exciting and all these other things. And that's all true, right? Fact of the matter is, PrizePicks, it's just fun, man. It's just fun to play. It's super easy to play. You pick between 2 and 6 players. You look at the number, right? They're going to give you a statistical projection, and you pick more or less. That's it. It's seriously that easy. More or less than 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 25 times your money. Right now, I'm all over the NFL. Love playing my NFL on PrizePicks. You can play NBA. You can do NHL. You can kind of mix and match on some of these combo picks along the way. A little LeBron and Travis Kelce combination. It's just fun. I guarantee you, you're going to have a good time. Go put PrizePicks on your phone. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use that code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a great time. You got a great chance to win money, and you are going to tell all your friends about it, right? PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And also a reminder, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Got Locked On Lakers, our friends over there, Locked On Dodgers, jam-packed with incredible content, so be sure to check it out. And also a special shout out to our everyday listeners. We appreciate you watching every episode, listening to every episode, and you can be an everyday listener too. It's 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're going to throw out some grades on the defense over the weekend, starting with the defense and the interior line there. Aaron Donald finished with a PFF grade under 65 for the second straight week. He's been dealing with some groin tightness that kind of flared up a little bit, and he had 4 pressures. Kobe Turner had 3. Not the best showing like we've seen in the past from them. I think you gotta give him a B, C plus B minus range for them.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think that the Aaron Donald injury is probably one of those little nagging things that that doesn't quite prevent him from playing, but maybe prevents him from playing at his absolute best. Aaron Donald, even at some sort of limited capacity, is still better than just about anybody else that's going to be out there. I think that we judge him a little bit against his own standard, which, quite frankly, is probably unfair. I certainly understand why we do it, because Aaron Donald's Aaron Donald, and we're used to seeing him do superhuman kind of things. But it just, in the grand scheme of things, just his presence, I think, creates a lot of problems for the other team, even if he's not playing at that, 100 out of 100 level. Kobe Turner, he's another guy. There's a learning curve. There's going to be good. There's going to be less good. And I think that we just saw one of the less good. I think that if you're looking at the overall graph, his graph is still trending upwards in a very significant and positive way. I like that a lot. Aaron Donald's going to be there. Aaron Donald is going to be a guy that on Thursday night against the Saints will create problems because he's Aaron Donald. It's a big game, and that's what he does. So I'm not worried too much about him. I think you're just still seeing with guys like Turner the ebb and flow of your rookie season in the NFL, and the ability to physically do it, the ability to mentally do it, the ability to prepare to do it. All of those things are pretty typical for what you're seeing of a first-year player.
Absolutely. And it's really been nothing short of incredible what this defense has been able to accomplish, overachieving despite not being able to get a ton of pressure and a ton of sacks. And they've really just have been able to just stay the course this year and hang in there. And I think with Aaron Donald, as you mentioned, yeah, that's a great point right there. It's not hurt enough to be sidelined, but also not probably very close to his version of 100%. You know, he's a physical freak. He's Bruce Banner in football cleats. So he's going to get there. And I think it's just a little bit of a lull, and he's going to finish strong. I have full faith in that. Kobe Turner, of course, the conductor, he's absolutely made strides this season. He's emerged as one of their better rookies as well. So, yeah, I just want to see some of the results. I think the effort, of course, has been there, but you want to see them get home and get those results. Now, as far as the inside linebackers, though, my guy Ernest Jones, he was my preseason prediction to make the Pro Bowl, lead the league in tackles. Once again, he was a menace. You saw him making plays all over the football field. He had 7 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs, had a pass breakup. And also Christian Roseboom, give him credit. This guy's a ball hawk. He's always tipping balls. You always see him in opportunistic situations. And he, of course, tipped that ball up that led to the John Johnson interception there. So the inside linebackers, I'm going to give them an A.
Yeah, I think that's a good grade. I think that Ernest Jones is one of those guys that you get it, I get it, and Rams fans probably get it because they watch the team pretty closely. If you are an NFL fan that maybe your favorite team is not the Rams, or you watch the Red Zone exclusively and you're not watching the games in and out the way that you and I and some other people are, Ernest Jones is not a name that's going to jump off the page at you. He's not going to have, a 5-sack day. He's not Khalil Mack. He's not one of these guys. What he is he's a really good football player, and he's in the middle of a ton of plays. He makes a ton of tackles. He's just really rock solid. This defense is not led by the headliners the way it has in the past. Jalen Ramsey's gone. Bobby Wagner's gone. Von Miller's gone. Even guys like Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, Eric Weddle, just guys' names that you know and kind of pop off the screen here and there. This is more of a this is the Rose Boobs that you're talking about. This is Ernest Joneses that you're talking about. Maybe not brand names, but good, solid NFL football players that are doing enough to get off the field when ball moves. Let's not be dishonest about this. The ball moves up and down the field, but typically they're not giving up a ton of points. They do a pretty good job, and Ernest Jones is calling in the middle of all that. I think he's done a really good job for them this season.
He's currently 9th in the NFL with 125 tackles, so a very productive player. And also, for the team, as far as team leader in cleats, I don't know if you know about his cleat game, Travis, but this guy is clearly the best cleat game. All custom Jordans, Jordan 12s, 13s, 1s. Next time you're on the field, check out his cleat game. Him and Kobe Durant, they're like next level. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy's super professional. He's got a Jordan deal, but he definitely deserves one. And then we got outside linebackers. So Byron Young has had 1 sack in his last 5 games. Sunday didn't have a single QB hit, didn't have a TFL. Michael Hoyt had 2 pressures. Young had 2 pressures, but no sacks, no TFLs for the 3rd straight game. So the production level from the outside linebackers has definitely dropped off. For them, I'm going to have to throw them a C grade.
Yeah, again, the Commanders game was weird because there wasn't a ton of ooh, did you see that moments defensively? But they also never were really in a ton of trouble. Other than Derion Kendrick, it was a pretty average pedestrian, keep Sam Howell in front of you. Don't let him do too much. Try to do the best you can against Terry McLaurin. Try to get as much pressure as you can, but just let's not make any fatal mistakes. I think it was a very conservative game plan considering the opponent. I think as we get into the next couple of weeks, maybe it's a little different. Or I should say New Orleans is a different animal right there. But yes, I think generally speaking, you're right. It wasn't great, but I think that has a lot to do with what they were trying to just win the game, get off the field, get ready for the next one. I think you might see something a little different on Thursday night, considering that you've got a longer week ahead, so you can really kind of empty the tank a little bit.
Yeah, I do want to give Nick Hampton a little shout out for breaking up that pass there on fourth down. So that definitely was a heads up play, but you're just not seeing the pressure and the production that we saw from weeks ago. I think a little bit of a rookie wall for Byron Young, like we were talking about yesterday for Steve Avila. So we just need these guys to just find it, dig deep, and finish the season strong. And then you got the cornerback position. So this one was interesting because Akella Witherspoon, he was Akella Witherspoon from early in the season. You saw him clamping up. You saw the seatbelt action, just locking guys up there. He just allowed 1 catch on 7 targets, so he did a fantastic job before he got a little banged up. But then Derion Kendrick, he really struggled. We'll get into that in a second. For the cornerbacks as a whole, based on how the game transpired towards the end, I got to throw them probably a C plus, B minus. So let's go C plus.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Again, I'm going to go back to let's just get the hell out of here. Let's just make sure that this game is not a L. Just win the game. Let's be conservative. Let's play a little softer than you might. I want to carve Derion Kendrick out a special not you dude moment, because what he did is more like that can't happen. What he was doing was more not knowing what's going on, poor technique, bad positioning, than it was just, hey, keep everything in front of you and let the clock run and let's just get the heck out of here. If that's the problem moving forward, if that's the reason that Tommy DeVito hits a big play or Derek Carr hits a couple of big plays because he can't do it, then I think we've got a much larger problem. I'm going to give everybody a little bit of grace for that game against the Commanders just because of where it fell in the schedule. The Commanders are not a dangerous team necessarily. But my eyes are pointed forward to see what comes up next, because that secondary, other than Witherspoon, John Johnson's been, he's been good, but again, he's not a huge difference-making player. I'm paying attention. I think that if we're talking about the 3 levels of defense, that's the one that I'm most concerned about.
For sure. I think you talk about the safety position. The bright spot, absolutely, Quentin Lake allowed 23 yards on 7 targets. He's definitely been another find this year. Just you don't talk about it as much because he's not a rookie, but really it's the first time he's gotten a big opportunity. Of course, dad was a successful player, played at UCLA, local guy. Love me some Quentin Lake, of course. And then John Johnson III. We all love some John Johnson, man. JJ3 came home, and some about him getting some revenge games against the Browns and just being opportunistic. He had the pick, he had that tip pass. And how about this? The most important thing for me, a nice little return to form for Jordan Fuller. I think Jordan Fuller looked a lot better out there. He wasn't getting beat as much. And I think that the instincts were back. He wasn't over pursuing. So definitely a much better game. I think moving forward, like big picture, I do think that maybe some more athletic safeties is something you kind of want to consider, but they definitely got the job done. Got to give them a strong, solid B.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, I'm a broken record on this. They did what they needed to do against a team like Washington. Washington was ready to be beat. The only way Washington was going to win that game was if you gave up a bunch of big plays and let them be in the middle of the game, in the middle of the third quarter, and look around like, hey, we're up by a touchdown, or we're only down by 3 points. That was the only way that they were going to stay in the game. The safeties didn't really allow that to happen. They kept everything in front of them. When you're playing a playoff game, and hopefully they're playing a playoff game here in a few weeks, then you're going to have to do more than just not foul it up. But that was the assignment coming into Washington, and I think they executed it.
100% did. And there was a definite weak spot as far as the guy who definitely got the horns down of the week, and that's coming up next for Derion Kendrick. Should the Rams make a change? Sean McVay had some comments about it, a little vote of confidence, but will they? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
So the holidays are here, right? And maybe you are one of those guys that get your gifts done way early, or maybe you're like the rest of us and you wait to the very last minute. Gametime can help you with this. The Gametime app on your phone is a lifesaver at last-minute tickets, right? So if you haven't done it, you want to give something to your brother, your dad, your mom, your sister, whatever it is, you don't have to worry about those tickets that you haven't bought yet, because you can do them on the Gametime app. It is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, theater events near you, and they've got killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seats, and, of course, that best price guarantee. So if you're like, oh, yeah, I'll get to it. Well, it's here, or that game is here, or that game that you wanted to go to is here and you didn't do it. Gametime. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after the event starts. It is the place to find last-minute ticket deals. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account with the Gametime app, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL, that's LOCKEDON NFL, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now, Travis, here in our final segment, we're going to talk some Derion Kendrick. Should the Rams replace him as a starting cornerback? Because for me, I live by the phrase, what must be done eventually should be done immediately. And I think at this point, we've seen enough that even through some of the high points, yes, we've seen some flashes, but the bottom line is he just doesn't grade out as a starting level cornerback in the NFL. He's a 59.9 overall PFA grade this season. He's 17th most among all cornerbacks when it comes to yards allowed at 566. But for me, the ultimate kicker, because you can live through that, because through experience, you're going to get better, but it's the penalties. He's been called for 11 penalties. He's given up receptions that have gone for 38, 39, 42, and 48 yards. So giving up big plays. Bad penalties. Look at the 49ers game early on, the Deebo Samuel. There's so many examples throughout the year where this costly penalty could really hurt this team in a close game in the playoffs. I think that they need to make a switch at the position.
I don't disagree, D-Mac. My only pushback on it is what's a better option? You're right. The penalties are a killer. The big plays have been a killer, but we've seen Trey Tomlinson get in here and there. He's got a little bit of an injury issue, so that really hasn't worked out. And I will defer to Sean McVay yet again. He gets to see all these guys in practice every day. He gets to see what it looks like much more up close and personal than I think anybody else obviously is going to get to do it. If there were a better option out there, I would be 100% willing to go try it. Look, let's take, here's a dream scenario, right? A dream scenario is you take care of business tomorrow night against the Saints. You go to New York the week after that, New Year's Eve, and you beat Tommy DeVito and the Giants, and you take care of business there. You've got your 9 wins. The rest of the NFC shakes out. You're locked into a playoff spot. Maybe it's 6, maybe it's 7, but you're locked into it. You got one more game left against San Francisco. Maybe you can use that as a little bit of a laboratory to figure out what your other options are. That if you get torched, okay, whatever, we're still in the playoffs. But if it looks better, maybe you can stumble into something. But you got to take care of business in these next 2 games. You got to find a way to get Kendrick better. And I don't know if that is you give him more help. I don't know if that's a scheme that Raheem Morris is going to be able to put together on short. But there just don't seem to be a lot of better options at that spot right now that the Rams can go to without putting a lot of things at risk. And as bad as Kendrick has been at times, at least you kind of know what he's going to give you and where his deficiencies are and where you need to give him help. Trying something totally brand new at this point of the season, this close to your goal, feels very risky.
I'm just concerned that he's going to be a major liability in a playoff game. I mean, I think as far as Trey Tomlinson, no, Trey Tomlinson isn't the answer at this stage of the season. Like you said, too late in the year. He's also banged up at the moment. That's not the way to go. But you could throw out there a secondary of Ahkello Witherspoon, Kobe Durant, Quentin Lake with Jordan Fuller and John Johnson III. So I think the emergence of Quentin Lake, that's where you start to have the conversation of putting Kobe Durant in one of the outside spots with that versatility. For me, I just look at, I could picture this against the Detroit Lions, close game. Rams have 3-point lead, and the Detroit Lions have the ball. They're marching down the field, and for whatever reason, Derion Kendrick decides to tackle Amon-Ra St. Brown in the end zone, and they get the ball at the 1. They punch it in. That's the freaking game. You know, those are the things that keep me up at night.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Look, I don't like your fan fiction of what might happen in the first round of the playoffs, because it doesn't feel super fiction-y. It feels non-fiction-y. I feel like I've seen that movie already, even though it hasn't played. You're right. I don't love it. I agree with you that what must be done eventually should probably be done now, unless if I do it now, it actually might make it worse. I need to at least get somebody else that I can count on to a certain degree. I like the 5 guys that you mentioned that you could put out there. Maybe if you can get a lead against New Orleans, maybe if you can get a lead against Tommy DeVito and the Giants, then maybe you can start to experiment a little bit.
Good point.
But really just throwing stuff against the wall at this point feels risky to me, even as risky as Doug McCain fanfic.
Okay, awesome. Well, at least want to try to manifest and throw it out in the universe so I can feel good about it. And I will say 3 biggest needs: left tackle, edge rusher, cornerback. Those are the needs they have to address this offseason. I definitely think they should strongly consider bringing back Akella Witherspoon, but I think that's definitely the case this year, that no matter what happens, whether or not he gets the starts the rest of the way, you need to replace him at that position ultimately. But unfortunately, the roster is what the roster is at this point in the season. You just kind of have to make do with what they have. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on the X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And as always, you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams house?